When a student's special attention makes her teacher cross the line, he finds himself trapped in a dangerous love triangle. But how far will it go? Let's find out. The movie begins with Cairo Sweet, an 18-year-old girl narrating her thoughts on what it means to be an adult. She lives alone in her house because her parents, both lawyers, are permanently abroad. She finds solace in writing, longing for love and a sense of belonging, but often feels lonely. She mentioned meeting a teacher who is also a writer, and this encounter sets the course for a complex and intense relationship. Cairo walks in her literature class, where Jonathan Miller, the teacher, is already present, even though the class is not scheduled to start for another hour. She tells him that she lives in Level Hill, which greatly surprises him. He hands her a list of books they will be studying in class, and when she reveals that she has already read all of them, he is even more impressed. Soon, her friend Winnie joins them, and it becomes clear that this is her second time attending the class. When Winnie's stomach growls, she and Cairo leave to grab some food. While they are gone, Jonathan inspects the books Cairo brought to class. His colleague and friend, Boris, enters and asks what he is reading. Jonathan is holding an erotic fiction book, and Boris snatches it before starting to read it aloud. Jonathan quickly takes the book back and walks over to eat the biscuits Boris has made. Boris then finds a book belonging to Jonathan that Cairo had checked out from the library. He notes that she is the only one who has ever done so. Meanwhile, at their home, Jonathan's wife Beatrice is buried in her work. Jonathan tries to get her attention and tells her about Cairo and the types of books she reads. He also mentions that she has borrowed his book, but Beatrice dismisses it mockingly. She suddenly receives a phone call from Amy, which visibly irritates her. Jonathan is also slightly annoyed. He walks away and in response, turns on some music, visibly upset. After her call, Beatrice joins him. They share a drink, and he starts reciting lines from a book called Under the Roofs of Paris before kissing her.
I take the first bill I find in my pocket and wipe my cock on it.
As they begin to dance, tension rises. However, Beatrice's phone rings again and she has to leave. Boris later complains about having a terrible weekend as he and Jonathan sit on the court. Looking towards the woods, Boris suggests that there might be ghosts there and that the plants feed on the souls of the dead. At that moment, Cairo emerges from the woods and greets them. The two men question her, and Boris offers her some biscuits, before leaving while mockingly addressing Jonathan. Jonathan asks Cairo if she ever feels scared walking through the woods alone, but she replies confidently, saying she is the scariest thing there. As Boris walks in the hallway, Winnie stops him and tries to tease him awkwardly. She tells him she wants to be in his class and asks if he can tutor her. Cairo watches their interaction from a corner. Winnie then tells Cairo that she is seducing Boris and asks if she is jealous in a sing-song voice. The girls then leave, and in the evening, they meet up at Cairo's place. She asks Cairo where her parents are, and Cairo responds that she does not know how long they will be away. Winnie suggests dressing Cairo up, saying she can be both smart and hot. Cairo is writing an essay for her Yale application, but she struggles with a question about her greatest achievement. Winnie tries to assist her, yet they fail to find the perfect response. Eventually, Winnie advises her to live through an experience that would be worth writing about. Cairo then shifts the conversation and directly asks if Winnie truly intends to sleep with Boris. Winnie admits that she does, but she prefers an older man for her first time. Changing the subject, Winnie mentions that Jonathan seems to view Cairo differently from the rest of the students. However, Cairo finds this hard to believe. During class, she repeatedly glances at Jonathan, and at the end of the lesson, he asks her to stay behind. Meanwhile, Boris approaches Jonathan in class, inquiring about Beatrix and the book she is currently working on.
How's B?
Jonathan invites Boris to dinner, but suggests that he take a shower beforehand. Once Boris leaves, Jonathan turns on some music and begins dancing, only to realize Cairo is watching him with amusement. As he turns to her couch, Jonathan asks if she has ever attended the poetry gatherings at Sally Bunny's in Victorian Village and encourages her to go that weekend. The real reason he wants to discuss with her was to discuss a story she wrote about a hesitant spider. He recites a few lines from her piece before they continue discussing the spider's character. Impressed by her writing, Jonathan praises her talent and offers her a head start on the midterm, but he assigned her the task of writing a short story in the style of her favorite author, explaining that it could be a valuable addition to her portfolio for Yale. On this subject, Cairo says, Jonathan, that she read his book and describes it as a grand, tragically romantic horror novel. Quoting a few lines from it, she praises his writing. Jonathan, however, admits that it was the first thing he ever wrote.
That was the first thing I'd ever written.
And confesses that he hasn't written anything since getting married and taking up teaching. But Cairo challenges him, saying he isn't inspired, and as they continue, Winnie joins them. That evening, Boris, Jonathan, and Beatrice go off for a dinner where Winnie happens to be their waitress. When Beatrice questions why their order hasn't been served yet, Winnie offers them a complimentary drink. A brief but tense exchange follows between Winnie and Boris, filled with sneers and sarcastic remarks. At one point, Winnie mockingly calls Jonathan a boring teacher, making Boris laugh. Jonathan then tells Beatrice that Winnie is a friend of Cairo's. As the conversation shifts to writing, Beatrice asserts that Jonathan is a better teacher than a writer and implies that writing isn't truly his calling. Both she and Boris tell him that the issue isn't his ability to write, but the fact that he chose to stop writing and became a teacher instead. John is visibly offended and Boris embarrassed.
Well, okay.
Boris and Jonathan are sitting at their usual spot when Cairo brings them coffee. Boris offers her a biscuit he baked, and she playfully suggests that he should sell them to raise money for his team, volunteering to help him organize it with Jonathan at school, provoking an unexpected reaction from John. Boris jokes enjoying the idea, then leaves them alone. Cairo sits down. They share a cigarette, then John gives her a nice compliment on her glasses, and Cairo continues seducing her teacher.
You're sweet.
Later, Jonathan receives a text from Beatrice, inviting him on a weekend trip. Meanwhile, Cairo and Winnie stopped by Jonathan's classroom, catching him as he was about to leave. He briefly mentioned his upcoming trip with his wife before Cairo asked for his approval on her chosen writer for the midterm. After a short exchange, he left. The moment he was gone, Winnie climbed onto his desk, mimicking Cairo's tone when she spoke to him, laughing at her own impression. In the middle of her teasing, Boris entered and overheard their conversation. He is looking for Jonathan. They were supposed to eat together. Amused, he commented on their discussion and casually mentioned that he agreed with the biscuit baking idea, then asked for their help. Winnie, seizing the moment, insisted he give her his number for convenience. Taking his phone, she dialed Cairo's number before slipping it into her chest with a playful smirk. But just as she was about to walk away, Boris swiftly retrieved it. Meanwhile, John is waiting for Beatrice to finish up when he noticed Cairo's name flashing on an incoming call. Confused, he checked his bag and realized he had somehow ended up with her device. When he answered, Cairo quickly explained and asked him to drop it off at her place. By the time he arrived, rain poured down in heavy sheets. He called out to her, urging her to step into the storm. Hesitantly, she moved closer, and without thinking, they kissed intensely. Later that day, Cairo replays the moment again and again in her mind in front of the TV, while John is quite calm at home with Beatrice, still super focused on writing her book. As John receives Cairo's midterm, Bea starts complaining. She blows John off because she's on edge and needs her space. Very funny. Restless, he stepped outside with Cairo's midterm assignment in hand. As he read, he was struck by the raw, intimate nature of her writing. It was about them. What she wrote was an intimate story that was portrayed by them, and with inspirations from Henry Miller's novel, Tropic of Cancer. Jonathan starts to please himself while reading the story. He even has an orgasm. But on Monday, Cairo waits for Jonathan in class. But when he arrived, he walked past her without emotion. Coldly, he told her to pick another writer, deeming her story inappropriate. When she demanded to know why, he remained firm. Furious, she lashed out, calling him talentless. Their confrontation ended in silence, but the damage was done. Jonathan arrives home, exhausted, and tells Beatrice he had a rough day. He starts drinking in an unusual way, which surprises his wife. As he recounts his conversation with Cairo and the story she submitted, her interest peaks. Beatrice excitedly asks him to show her the story. When she finishes reading, she grins, making him repeat the way Cairo described him. Amused, she leans in closer. Meanwhile, Cairo, desperate for distraction, asks Winnie to text Boris, telling him she's drunk and asking what he's doing. At the same time, Jonathan remains fixated on Cairo's words. As he quietly recites lines from her story, Beatrice takes his hand and presses it against her body. Their lips meet, but before things escalate, a knock at the door startles them, and Boris steps in.
Seriously, stop leaving this door unlocked, okay? For your own safety.
Back at Cairo's place, Winnie confesses that she wants Boris to like her. She wants him to sleep with her. Amused, Cairo eggs her on, daring her to text him, saying she's spending the night with her. Teasingly, she adds that they're doing what girls do when they're alone at night. Beatrice notices Boris smiling at his phone. Suspicious, she asks who he's texting, but he brushes it off. Instead, he simply replies to Winnie, telling her to go to bed. Cairo, irritated by his indifference, turns to Winnie with a wicked grin. She commands Winnie to take off her shirt. Cairo snaps a picture, and Winnie immediately sends it to Boris. The phone rings and Beatrice picks it up. She hands the phone to Jonathan. The moment he hears the news, his expression darkens. When Boris receives Winnie's photo, he hides his phone to avoid Beatrice. Boris abruptly decides to leave, saying a quick goodbye to Beatrix. It is revealed that earlier that day, Cairo had sent her story to the principal. The following days, Cairo doesn't show up at school. Winnie looks miserable. She asks Jonathan if he's seen her. He responds coldly. Now both Cairo and John Hanton are summoned by the principal, Joyce.
How did it start?
Cairo states that Jonathan gave her the midterm assignment in advance and that they often met before, during, and after class to discuss literature. She explains that he was impressed by her knowledge of his work. Jonathan, tense, insists that Cairo is exceptionally talented and that he mentored her because she exceeded the curriculum. He claims that their relationship was strictly that of a student and a teacher. He mentions returning her phone and his planned vacation with Beatrix. He swears he never touched her, and when she sent the story, he told her it was inappropriate. Yet, deep down, he knows there's no defense strong enough to clear him. Boris asks Jonathan if he loves Cairo. Jonathan admits he struggles with boundaries, often crossing them. They argue before Boris leaves. Jonathan confesses to Beatrix that he's been suspended, sparking a heated fight. The argument turns personal. Jonathan calls Beatrix an alcoholic, and she retaliates, saying he's dull, which is why she drinks. Meanwhile, Winnie visits Cairo, demanding answers about what she's doing to Jonathan. Cairo reveals she's testifying against him at the school board for underestimating her. Winnie threatens to testify against Cairo, but Cairo blackmails her with evidence of her and Boris. Cairo asserts that this is her greatest achievement. The movie ends with Cairo standing on her bed, reading her essay about herself and Jonathan. Jonathan loses his job. Boris and Winnie pass each other like strangers. Cairo spots Jonathan at school and, despite her pain, cries upon seeing him. She concludes that everything that happened has transformed her into a hero, a villain, and a writer. And with that, the movie ends, leaving viewers with a bittersweet sense of closure and empathy for John, who lost everything. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.